Hi there, welcome to the next video for multiplayer game template. This video we're going to be looking at how we can do testing from peer-to-peer, and also using the dedicated server. All this testing will have to be done outside of the play-in editor, so we'll be looking at the command lines to launch this and how to control your game mode values and configurations based on the command lines that you use. First things first, everything's going to be based on two key parameters here. One is the location of your Unreal editor.exe. It will always be from the location that you've placed the engine under Engine, Binaries, Win64, Unreal editor.exe. So this one here is what we need first, and then we need here. So in this instance, I'm looking at Windows as the way for managing this. This can obviously be done on Mac and Linux as well. There will be slightly different commands. These will not be covered in this video, perhaps in a later one. All of the key values will need to be surrounded by quotations. Now, we need to find the location of your U project. So for me, that is under E, Asset Development, MPGT, and here. Putting the two of them together with a space and using the hyphen game at the end, this is going to launch an instance of the game as it would be launched on your computer if you loaded a compiled exe for the client. This will take a few moments to load. It takes slightly longer than a compiled version because we're still running from the editor and not everything's all nicely packaged up. Excellent. So that's just got two versions of this. What we're going to do is I'm just going to move one over here, one over here. So we have two, in essence, two computers thinking that they're playing together. In multiplayer, one will host the game, and we're just going to call this test1. Let's do deathmatch. Now, if we do create, this will join here. Find servers. Now, here we have a test server, which this is a call to localhost. This was an example previous test. But these ones that say test server are hard-coded. Okay, so you could put anything in here. These are not checked. What we can see here is MiniBeast at the bottom is actually the one that's advertised. Since this is peer-to-peer, I can just use the join and connect automatically to that session. Now, please note that while testing, the second character or the second controller will never show the correct character that you have selected at the moment. There's a glitch on 5.6 that has changed the way the controllers are identified, which is causing this issue. This will be addressed in a future update. So we have both devices have joined that session. Okay, now let's look at the dedicated server, because obviously if we can join peer-to-peer, we want to be able to look at the dedicated. So what we're going to look at here, I'm just going to pull this up and let's remove this. So if we break this down, I'm just going to separate this out into next new lines. So we have a giant string here. This giant string is breaking down all of the values that we can set. So if we're launching a dedicated server from the command line, we need to make sure that we are putting the lobby as the first starting map, because we're actually configuring what map we're going to be going to based on this command line. So game mode is deathmatch, round time 200. Okay. Win objects 5, server name test, and the map that we're going to select after the lobby has actioned is going to be showcase. Now, 3 key switches at the end here, and they are server, listen, and log. Server means that we're launching a dedicated server instance. Listen means that we are listening for a connection. And log means that we will see everything reflected on the command line as it pops up. Now, as I mentioned before, all of these values at the start, they will all be delimited by a question mark. This is very important that this is the delimiter you must use. Inside the user guide, if we look for CLI and parameters, what we're going to see is we're going to have a list of all of the parameters that are currently allocated and editable based on the game modes that you're in. Left-hand column is the option, so this is the name that would commonly be used, probably on the user interface or just for quick reference or easily understandable by a human. Command is the actual command line value that we put in. As we mentioned, WO. WO is objectives. SV, server name. Okay. Right hand side, we have the type of value that will be allocated. So there's a good few in here to be able to alter. Now, if you add a value that is not used on the game mode, it will not have an effect. However, if you do not add a value that is allocated to a game mode, you will use the default value that is set for that game mode. So for example, if round time is 5 minutes and you only put 200 seconds, then it's not going to be 5 minutes. Okay, it's going to be 200 seconds instead. If you don't put it, it'll be the 5 minutes. So let's launch this. Okay, so got there are a couple of sessions loaded up here, and what we're going to do is we're just going to copy the command line for the dedicated server. Remember, so what we have here now is it's going to be loading up. Perfect. Now if we hit multiplayer, what we're going to see is I go to find servers. We're not going to see the dedicated server advertised. Okay, this is a common thing. It's not going to be advertised unless you have a specific online engine in there, for example, the AOE or the Steam one. We can join by IP address, but hard-coded at the start, I have 127.0.0.1. Now this is the call to localhost. This will let us join the dedicated server, and we can see the sessions that we are actually joining here, and we can see what's going on. Again, the secondary character will create a new controller reference, so that will not be reflected here. And what you can see is one of the characters, one of the sessions has the ability to kick. The first in the list of controllers will have the ability to kick the other players. Okay. What we can do is, as soon as we just ready up now, we can go and join the game and we can see what's happening on the dedicated server. We can see we also have the parameters that we set, deathmatch. And the nice thing about having the logs is we can actually see that the server is doing something, and if the server is actually hanging as well, we can keep an eye on that. There we go. Now we're running a dedicated server. There we go, just X out of both of them. Again, server registers that there's been a disconnect. Okay, we go back to multiplayer, find servers, we can join the server again, and it'll be within the session. There we go, we join back in. That's covered how we can actually look at test the peer-to-peer and also test the dedicated server. I'm just going to X out of dedicated server, and we're going to have a look at the ini file. Over here, default engine ini. Just to be sure, just to confirm, B, is this compiled build? Now this is a Boolean that's set on the BP general settings. It's very important that we change this to true if you are doing a development build or a production build. Testing servers, hard code these in or remove them if you don't want them in place. But the reason that these are available in this file opposed to solely being available in the general settings is I find it very useful to be able to manipulate the ini files through an automated workflow. So as you're building, you can automatically add the available testing servers that you have available and switch this Boolean so you're not wasting time building, realizing that you've not set the controllers to manage the fact that it's a dedicated build, and then you have to rebuild it, changing those settings. So keeping it in here just means it's easy to do on an automated workflow. So I hope this has been useful. If you like what you've seen, like and subscribe. Keep you updated on everything that's happening. But until next time, catch you later.